Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't underestimate
the power
of a single
Conversation.
It could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
conversations that matter.
So every girl has a male friend who is just a friend, and the whole world thinks that he's not just a friend, right? So is that true? Can guys and girls just be friends? This is what we're going to talk about today on Chatline. Please make sure you share your thoughts and your comments with us. So let me start with Tony. Tony, can guys and girls just be friends? That's going to be my question to you. I can't hear you, Tony.
On the spot right away. Thanks.
Of course.
Yeah, you can't hide behind the mute button.
I was trying. I really was. I want to say that yes, they can be. But sometimes it can be difficult, I feel like, to stay just friends. Like if we're talking like I don't want to get too technical, but I feel like sometimes some people can develop and they just don't say anything, maybe. I don't know. Am I making sense?
Kind of, sort of.
Yes.
Nate, what do you think? Can guys and girls just be friends?
There's a lot to that. So we'll probably talk about levels of friendship. That's going to play into it. You know, like you have acquaintances, you have friends, you got best friends. But also I find that like the older that I get, you know, how you can also be professional at work, that can also, you know, carry on into friendships. Not to belittle friendships into like a professional relationship, but like the older you get, the more you understand boundaries a lot better, and you understand the consequences of crossing those boundaries.
That's such a good word. Thanks for bringing that up.
So
Which one?
let's ask
Boundaries or
let's ask
consequences?
Trevor, because Trevor's the youngest
Boundaries.
one here.
Boundaries.
Let's ask Trevor. He's the youngest one here. Trevor, do you think guys and girls can just be friends?
I don't think they can. Well, it's possible, of course, but it takes a lot of willpower in order to stay friends. Especially if you're an attractive person, it's hard to be friends with somebody you think is attractive. If you're subjectively or objectively, it's gonna make it so much more difficult. And I think if you hang out with someone for a long period of time, someone's gonna develop feelings whether you like it or not. So yes and no, but mostly no.
But mostly no. So I think I'm the only
Yeah.
one who says yes. I'm totally for it. I think guys and girls can't just be friends. But let's say, regardless of gender, what is friendship? What is it built on? What is it based on to you guys when you guys talk about friendship? What does that mean to you guys?
Many things. I know, like when you're younger, it can revolve around just like common interest, I find. So same bands, similar video games, you know, and whatnot. That seems to be the defining characteristics of like when you're younger. And then as you get older, maybe develops more into your hobbies, or even you just get along with someone at work. So it kind of depends on where you're at life.
What about you, Tony?
Mine are like inside jokes. I would say mine are like inside jokes, or just like embarrassing moments, or just these awkward moments that you have with people, and then you're just bonded in that way. You're like, remember that time when you fell over the trash can? And we were like, and then it just becomes a thing that connects you guys. And that could be with girls or with guys. You know, you have those moments. It's worse when it's in front of a guy, but at least for me, girl.
And you'll end up like putting them in different compartments. So like you said, you'll have your fall over the trash can friends, and then you'll have your movie friends and whatnot. Sometimes they intersect, but sometimes they don't. I know when you're younger, they're more likely to not intersect. Like I knew my punk rock friends were not into like the football player friends, but I was kind of like, I don't really make a big deal out of either social group. So yeah, there's a lot to this, defining what a friendship is.
What about you, Trevor? What is friendship built on? Whether
I
it's
think
friendship between genders or not.
similar backgrounds and basis of understandings. For my friends, I only get along with people who understand me, like my humor or what I like to do. If they don't really understand you, then can't really hang out with them too much because there's will be too many things that differentiate you from them. So just similar interests and personalities, I'd say.
See, for me, it's so different because I like with my friends, they're usually not the same as me, or we don't have a lot of similarities. I mean, we do have like some similarities, but not a lot. I think we differ more than we are the same. And I think that's what makes the friendship more interesting. Because I think if you're just around people who's the same as you, you'd get bored, right?
I think it also
Uh,
depends on like how you became friends because I feel like sometimes it's like accident or most times it's accidental. I don't know if it's always like on purpose that you become like do you remember a friendship where it was literally like you made a decision, I'm gonna be friends with you. Like did you have any friendship like that?
I think that's how social media works, doesn't it? Like you have to intentionally
Oh
send a friend
yeah,
request.
true.
Oh, got you there.
True.
Got you there. I,
Yeah,
it's
and
interesting
that's
though that
true.
Arnie, that you brought that up, and that you're the one who has a differing opinion from the rest of us.
Yes, and I don't know why, because like I said, I do have friends who we do have things in common, but I have a lot of friends that we are just like nothing alike, but it just makes the friendship work. I don't know. I think that's just for me.
I think similar values, not necessarily we're the same interests. Because, like, my friends, we have varying interests. Like, I go to different people for different things, like, different people for different music, for different, like, TV shows, movies. I would say, like, we're not, like, super the same, but I feel like certain values probably keep us, like, closer together. Because I think even Chris put that in the chat. He said, like, mutual respect and interests. I think treatment towards each other is a big part of it, right? Like, how they treat you and um I guess your standard of what you accept like from a friend. Obviously if someone treats you like poorly, you're not gonna stick around. You're not gonna stick around for that. So I think that's a
Yeah,
big
that's
part of it.
true. But let me ask you this. So let's say you're interested in somebody, right? Do you think that friendship works?
If you're interested in somebody,
Yeah, let's say
Then you're
you're
lying.
interested.
That's not a real friendship. You're just lying the whole time you're waiting.
Why is it? What do you mean you're lying?
If you're interested in them and you're trying to be friends, then you're lying. You don't really want to be friends.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, you're only kidding
So you're
yourself.
just
You're
you're
lying to
just you're just
yourself.
waiting until you're not friends anymore.
Can we clarify? So is it like you're interested from the onset and then you're trying to be friends with them? Is that what the question is?
Sure, that could be the question.
So like we're talking I feel like Riley and Nate are talking about like ulterior motives. Like, yeah, like I'm interested in them, so I'm going to like lay the foundation to be like friends first and then
Mhm.
see where it goes, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. See, for me, like if I was interested in somebody, right, and I try to become friends with them, and then eventually I realize, oh, I really don't like them, or there's something about them that I don't like, and we end up being friends anyways, because then there's no longer that interest in them because I don't know, they just did something that turned me off, I guess. What are your thoughts?
I have a hard time being friends with people that I am interested in. Like
Really?
I don't think I'm strong enough to um continue a conversation if I already know that I like them. I feel like I struggle with that. I kind of just like I shut down a little bit. I get too formal. I get too proper.
See, that's how I am now. But when I was younger, I had like no fear, right? If I liked them, I would just go up to them. Now, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it.
I guess I'm the only one here who's married, so I'm kind of happy that I'm kind of far removed from this, close to like 15 years. Because every time I look back, I'm like, I don't miss that at all. It's such a nerve wracking time. There's so much anxiety involved, and like after you're married, you're just like, oh, I get it now. I get why people kind of just settle in and they seem a lot more relaxed.
So let me ask you this, Tony. Do you have any friends, I mean, like close friends that are just guys and literally there's nothing going on?
Yes, I wouldn't. I mean, it depends also what you mean by close. Like
You know,
closest, I think is like relative.
okay. So someone that you share stuff with, and like not necessarily
Yeah,
your best friend, but a really good friend that is the opposite gender.
yeah, I have those, but like looking at the relationships that the way that I see them is like brothers. Like
Okay.
they're people that like the way that Riley's smiling. They literally are like brothers to me. That I
Okay.
just kind of like ask them if there's anything, I'll ask them for advice on. It's like guy stuff that I don't know anything about. Like how what do you do for like your car, like for the car, or like how do you fix this thing like at the house? Like that's stuff that I go to them for.
Okay. So Riley, my question is to you. Do you have friends that are girls that are just friends? Like, you have no interest in them, they have no interest in you.
Yes, but I think it's different for guys and girls. For a guy, you have to have a lot of willpower to not have feelings for your female friends, because a lot of guys, they end up liking their female friends, or they always have. But I don't have. Maybe I'm a girl, but I don't have too many female friends because they all sometimes, if I spend too much time with them, will end up liking me as well. So I do, but I try to keep my distance as much as I can.
See, so that brings up the
Keep
next
it
question.
strictly platonic.
See, and that's the thing. That's the next question, right? So, how do you set boundaries when you have friendship with the other gender to keep it from evolving into a romantic relationship? If you just really just want to be friends, like how do you friend zone them? I guess
The
that's my
actual
question.
worst. Actual worst feeling. Nate, thoughts? Because you're the married
I,
one.
you're lying to yourself if you're like friend zoning someone. You're not. You're not friends anymore. That's done already. If you put someone in that zone, or I would hope it would be done. You don't want to stick around if someone friend zones you, because that's going to be incredibly awkward for everyone involved. So yeah, don't do that.
Well, Tony, did you ever have to friend zone anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so how'd you do that?
Okay, well, I want to backtrack a bit because you're talking about setting boundaries. And I feel like that's also why I'm super careful as a girl to because I feel like I'm just naturally nice. Like I just try to be nice to everyone and I try to, check up on everyone and be able to make sure everybody's okay. And sometimes I just get scared deep down when it's happening with like let's say a guy friend and I'm just like I hope that they're not misinterpreting what I'm doing and like think of it as me trying to flirt with them. That's something that's always at the back of my mind whenever I'm trying to just be nice in general. So I guess like with setting boundaries I just try to remind myself to not be the first one to cross that because I feel like the reason why guys feel okay to start crossing boundaries is if you give them some kind of like signal that you're interested or you give them like some kind of like if you like even flirt like once and then all of a sudden kind of like oh I guess this is okay for us to do so just like checking in with you first and then when you get to that point where you feel like they are crossing that boundary that's when you kind of bring it up like by the way this thing that happened I just want to let you know that the way that I kind of see you is just as a friend, someone that I appreciate, but I don't really see you that way. And now I'm not good at confrontation. So the first time that I had to have that conversation was the actual worst because I was just like going like beating around the bush like the whole time. And I was like, how am I supposed to say this? It was so hard for me. I
See,
feel like
I did the
uncomfortable
same
about it.
thing. I beat around the bush, okay, but not in a way that they don't know because I have a lot of guy friends, and sometimes people will tell me, "Oh, I think he likes you" and all that stuff. But if I don't like him, then I'm just straight out like when we're having conversations, I'm so glad we're just friends. I mean, I literally say. I'm just glad we're just friends. I'm glad, like, I don't like you, you don't like me, we're just friends. To hopefully they get the message. Does that work?
Hint, hint,
I mean,
hint,
it's worked
hint,
for
wink,
me.
wink.
Why are you laughing, Nate?
It's so passive. But it's
But
true. No,
still,
I get it. I mean, there's more than one way to do it. And in the end, you do want to be nice about it. But there are times when you're trying to be nice about it and they don't take the hint. So what do you do then, Arnie, if they don't take the hint?
if they what?
If they don't take the hint.
Oh, then that's when I kind of have to be like straight up and
Direct.
saying I don't, and I tell them, I'm glad we're friends. I really like you as a friend, but I don't see you anything more than that. Because there has been times where, I did do the whole I'm glad we're friends thing and they still didn't get it. And, I would feel bad because they're so nice. They're buying me things and they're giving me things. And I'm like, dude, we're just friends. You know that, right? But then, yeah, sometimes you do have to flat out say it because some people don't get the message. Because, I mean, for me, I think some people will say, well, I think eventually I can wear them down and they'll give in, right?
Oh, okay. You treat it like attrition.
Well, no, because I don't know, Tony.
No comment.
I will say though, being a male, the ball is going to be more in your court, whether you are going to make the move or not. So you are more in control of that. And I know that growing up, there was like females who would try to drop hints, but it's like I would have no interest, and so like nothing would ever happen of it because like in the end, it was kind of more up to me to be the one to be asking the person out or making, initiating something. So I think there is that difference too, male and female.
But you know what, Nate? Times have changed because now girls are the ones asking guys out. They're not even waiting for the guy to ask them out anymore.
True.
See, that's why you're lucky you're not in,
Yeah.
in the pool anymore. Okay, you're lucky.
That's why I say for the most part, that's kind of how it works. For me, like when I was younger and I was still single, that was actually a turnoff for me if somebody was coming on too strongly. Like to me, I'd be like, that's it, red flag. No, this ain't happening. So.
Well, let me ask Trevor. Is that the same way for you? Like if a girl comes on too strongly, like they want to, where they want to be more than friends, is that a turn off for you, or do you like it because you're flattered?
Oh, I like it. It makes me flattered. Like you're going for what you want. I've been waiting for it to come, and it shows like you're interested. It feels good for somebody to chase after you sometimes. I think it just depends if they're like throwing it at you, then it's a little too easy. Then it's like the goes easy. But if it's like they're interested, it's different from being easy, I think. I think that's what it too is. You have to differentiate and decipher which one it is. Are they interested in you and going after you because you are who they want, or are they just an easy person and they do that with everybody else?
Well, Tony, let me ask you this. Have you
Oh,
ever
no.
pursued anybody, like one of your friends that you liked? Did you like actively pursue people?
Can we define like what's pursuing?
Like, either be the first one to ask them out or be the one to say, hey, I want to kind of be more than friends since we're friends already.
No. I feel like the most, if I've ever pursued someone is just like messaging first or like following them first on social media, because like that was like, those are, I feel like, are the small steps to getting to kind of know a person, is those connections. Because I feel like at least in my like upbringing, a lot of my interactions and connections was through social media, and that's kind of what I've kind of had to deal with like now, as opposed to maybe in Nate's time where it was more like in-person stuff.
How old do you think I am?
No, you're married already, so you didn't have to go through all this social media thing.
Yeah, but what? No, social media was. I mean, it was starting with us, but like it was.
But like what though?
It's all still similar. Like, you would still find people and you would message them or you would add them and you would start a conversation. Come on, I wasn't building a GeoCities website and then sign my guest book, please. No.
See, I guess I'm the only one from the Stone Ages because we didn't have social media. You couldn't follow people to try to, message them or anything like that.
Yeah.
You literally
you had to tie a note to a bird's leg and
you could call. Or you can send them messages on their pagers.
on their pagers. What?
Yeah, we learned
you
we learned to
really?
send messages on pages. Yeah, like we learned how to make the
What would
numbers
you
letters
say?
to send messages.
What would you? How could you fit? I'm sorry. Anyway.
You can't fit a lot. You cannot
Yeah.
fit a lot, but still.
They had a system. They had a system for doing it.
Okay.
And see, so that's my thing, okay? Because like I said, when I was younger, I didn't have problems going up to guys and telling them, like I was interested or whatever. But now I can't do it. And, and back then when guys would come up to me and tell me they liked me, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of don't like you though. But, and so
I'm laughing at the chat.
why, what did you read?
Yeah. They mentioned Friendster.
Oh,
I'm
AJ
curious. Yeah. They mentioned a lot of social media there.
I forgot about Friendster.
That was
Yes.
in the Philippines. I know that was big. Friendster was big.
Yeah, it was about MySpace. It was about dressing up your page and having HTML code and your own custom song. That's how you put yourself out there back in my day.
Yeah. So then what about, exes? Can you still be friends with your exes? Nate, are you friends with any of your exes?
Oh no.
No, not
Hey,
at
he's
all.
married, so we could ask him that.
Yeah, if you're married, definitely don't have friendships with your exes. You're
Like none at
asking for
all?
trouble. No, none at all. No,
Not even like as an acquaintance?
no. Everyone kind of moved on. So, and that's honestly the best thing to do. Just move on. You go your separate ways.
I think I agree with that. What about you, Tony? Are you friends with any of your exes?
On social media, but we're not like talking to each other like like catching up like, hey, how you doing? I think it's normal to be like what's the right word? Like civil, or if you see them just like, oh, I hope you're well. I feel like that stuff is normal, but anything that's in terms of like being close, I feel like that's
somebody.
like really hard to do. Like it
I could try to my other lens, but it
doesn't
might
matter
not be
how
that
good
right.
doesn't matter how good the relationship like ended. I feel like it's a lot harder to be close
And
in
see
that way.
that I agree with,
Yeah.
Depending on how things ended. Because if it ended on good terms, okay, then possibly. But I think if it really ended on bad terms, then yeah, there's no way you could be friends with your exes. I don't think I'm friends with any of my exes. So.
Yeah, if you're
I think that is something I must agree with Nate on.
well, both parties, when they're coming into it, they need to leave their baggage at the door. You don't want to have any strings attached. That's not good for any relationship.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I guess that's one thing that we can all agree on. Okay, so let me ask you, Tony, you do still have guy friends though, right? Like whether they're close friends or just acquaintances. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some struggles you think, what are some struggles that come along with having friends of an opposite gender?
I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, is that I feel like you're always walking a fine line of knowing where your boundaries are at with them, because you don't want to, at least like as from the perspective, because I don't know what it's like for guys. From the perspective of a girl, I feel like I'm always trying to be cautious of my actions to not give off vibes that make them think like I'm like my feelings are changing. I feel like that's something that's always in the back of my, because I don't have that like, because when I'm with my girlfriends, like, we're just hanging out, like that's not something that you're thinking about. But I feel like I don't want to say my behavior shifts, but I'm just like more cautious, I think, once I'm like with like different guy friends, just because I'm very aware of that. Like I don't want to give people the wrong impression. I don't want them to think that, I don't want them to think. I know you can't control what people think, but yeah.
See, I'm the opposite. I can be totally comfortable with my guy friends. Yeah, I mean, because like I said, if we both know we're friends and it's not going anywhere else, I'm totally comfortable with them. Sometimes I feel like I could share more with guys than I can with girls.
Interesting.
Because some guy, guys, a lot of them, they have no care in the world. They'll listen. They're not going to judge, right? Your girlfriends, they're judging. You tell them something, they're judging you. Come on, you got to agree with me.
No, my friends are different. I mean, I think we roast each other, but I think that's different from like actual like judgment. I feel like with my guy friends, what I do appreciate from them is the alternate like perspective that they can give that maybe like a girl can with a situation. Like I like to ask because the way that I see them is literally like my brothers, and I try to extend that trust to them. Like, do you think this guy's flirting with me? Is this something that you could see? And then well, maybe, but I don't want to assume because like, there's stuff like that. But yeah, judgment, I think both sides. I don't really feel much from my friends.
Yeah.
You must have really judgmental like girlfriends.
No, it's not. I think it's because you're just so comfortable with them that they could just say anything.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's why they're okay to be judgmental. See, but with my guy friends, when I talk to them and share things, then it's like they don't care. I mean, like they'll listen, but they don't care. So Nate, you still have friends that are girls, though, right?
Now,
or acquaintances.
Yeah, I would say that the level of friendship for those of the opposite sex after I got married, just it's not that high of a level. There's some of the friends that I grew up with, so that's more of like childhood friends.
Yeah.
But even then, like even as we were growing up, like I never had really close relationships with members of the opposite sex. I know for some people it's different. Some people have like really close friendships with a member of the opposite sex. That was just never me growing up, not really. So even after I got married, like the number of female friends kind of just goes away, and everything just becomes a little more, I don't know, acquaintanceships more than anything.
See, like for me, it's different. Like all my guy friends that I had growing up and everything. So now a lot of them are married and have kids and stuff, and we're still friends. We'll still hang out and all that stuff. And of course, the wives come along, which is not a big deal, or their kids. So we still have that friendship.
Yeah. So
And
these were people that you've known for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Before they were married, also.
Yeah, way before they were married. Yeah.
See, something like that I think kind of makes sense, because if there was anything that should have happened in the past, and it probably should have already manifested itself at some point. So that's probably where also like the spouses of your friends would be a little more comfortable with that friendship.
Yeah. And like I said, like I will meet the wives and I will meet the kids and all that stuff. And, and so that they don't think like it's a threat. And for me, I'm very respectful with my guy friends that are married, where, if the wife is not happy, then I'm like, hey, then we don't have to hang out. We can still like call and chat and all that stuff, but we don't necessarily have to hang out. But for the most part, a lot of them are okay with us hanging out because, we say, hey, we've known each other since we were kids, and we don't see each other that way. So I think that's like one of the cool things. What about benefits? What are the benefits of having friendships with opposite genders? I mean, well, Tony, first of all, do you think there are any benefits to having good friends?
Yeah, because I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. I feel like there's always different perspectives that I can't get from girls that I can get from guys. Like, though, I feel like the way that they approach situations, like problems, is really different. So I'm always a person that likes to be able to see different perspectives, so that when I can see something from the guy perspective, I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Sometimes they like simplify it a lot easier for me, or like they break it down a lot easier for me. I'm just like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I was like, thanks for that. It's just a very just like A to B like quick thing. So I do appreciate that. And like levity. I think a lot of the guy friends that I have in my life like add a lot of like lightness to different situations. Yeah.
Yeah. See, for me, the reason I think like benefits of having guy friends is, one, anytime I need help with guy stuff, right? So doing things with the cars. I'm like, hey, how do I do this? How do I do this? Hopefully they know how to do those kinds of things, right? And then the other thing is their perspective is totally different from ours. Because I think with girls, sometimes we get too emotional, right? And we're like, we like this, we do this and all that stuff, but do they like us? And I like it when my guy friends will just straight up tell me, dude, he's just not that into you. And I'm like, okay, because sometimes you have to hear it from a guy because you're thinking, oh no, maybe he's just being aloof, or no, maybe he's just shy, right? But when you tell the guys like the things that happen and they just say he's just not that into you, see, that I think is helpful. What about you, Trevor? What are the benefits of having friends that are girls?
Same thing. A lot of guys aren't that emotional. So when you meet somebody to talk to that's emotional, you go to your girlfriends. Um, your girlfriends can also help you find more girls to talk to. Because if you're in a group and you want to approach a group of girls, it's easier if there's girls with you instead of a bunch of guys.
Ooh,
I didn't think about that.
I know that's a good one.
And
So
in
that's why
general,
I should use my guy friends.
it's just more appeal if there's as a guy if there's more women around you. Other women are like, oh, why does that guy have so much women around him? Something must be special about him. But if he's around
That
a lot of girls, then I mean a lot of guys, then it's like, oh, it's just any other guy. But it just depends.
so Nate, with your limited friends that are women, any benefits of having friends other than your wife?
Not really.
Well,
Nothing
no, because it's
immediately.
different. You're married.
You're right. That's why I say not really. I mean, I feel like most of the friends that I had that were female growing up were just kind of like the larger friend group that I have. So most of my friends were in church, and it's like you would have friends, you'd make friends with their friends, you'd make friends with their siblings and whatnot. So it was more of like I guess a community kind of friendship. And as far as like benefits, I don't know. I feel like I never needed kind of that emotional support. Not saying that it's wrong to seek that. Everyone's kind of different. Um, that's where like you don't necessarily have to have male or female friends. I don't think. But if there's a benefit and you're not crossing those certain boundaries, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And like I said, because especially me, because, I'm short and everything. And so I had a lot of guy friends who were tall and athletes and stuff. So I use that to my advantage because, when people are trying to pick on you, I'm like, don't mess with me because these are my friends, right? So that was kind of a benefit for me when I was growing up. And I think that's why I had a lot of friends that were guys because, I got to make sure I had protection.
And I will agree with Trevor though, like having, female friends, you can help you introduce you to others. So I agree with that. There is absolutely that.
Tony, do you think that works the other way for us? If we have more guy friends, they could introduce us to other guys.
That does not work. That doesn't work. That's not gonna
It doesn't
happen.
work that way.
No.
I don't think the guys care enough because I feel like girls are like, we're very encouraging. Like, oh, let me introduce you to my friend. Like, I know someone that, but for guys, they're just like, I don't think they care that much. They're just like, oh, you want to meet so-and-so? Are you sure? Like,
It's like he should be meeting you. Like that's on him.
yeah. So, yeah, I don't think it works the other way, Barney, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it works that way because I don't think any of my guy friends ever introduced me to other guys.
Yeah, no way.
But what other benefits do you feel, when you have opposite genders?
I like that my guy friends are very protective of me. It doesn't matter how, like, they could be younger, like they don't have to be older than me. They could be younger and they're like very protective of me. That's why I see them as brothers because I know that they're there, like, if I need them for anything. Like whenever I'm carrying around like heavy stuff, they're like, I give me that. I'm like, I got it. And like, no, come on. Like they'll fight you on that like little stuff. But it makes a big difference because it's like you don't have to. Like they don't have to do that, but just being respectful, I guess. I don't know if that's like old fashioned chivalry type stuff, but it's nice.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm overprotective of my guy friends. Like if I know girls are trying to hit on
Aw.
them. No, seriously, if I know that girls are trying to come after them and I don't think the girl is worthy of them, I will chase them away. Because they're my guy friends, right? One, I gotta like who they end up with because I already know if we don't like each other, I'm never gonna see that friend again. And it has happened in the past where I have lost some of my guy friends because their wives just, didn't want him to have any other friends except for her. You know what I mean? And so now with like some of my friends, I'm like, I don't like her. Can you like date somebody else?
So you're the quality control
Yes.
for your guy
Hey,
friends.
I've done a good job because a lot of my friends where I told them, don't do it, things have gone wrong. But when I said, yes, go with that girl, and everything's great. They're happy. And then we're still friends because, the girl likes me. So yeah.
Do you guys feel that it's harder to, because Riley kind of mentioned it earlier, like, is it harder to maintain relationships of the opposite gender versus like if you're the same?
Yeah,
Is it
I
harder
would
to do
say
that?
they're more likely to end in failure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at some point, right?
Right, because they may get into a serious relationship, and then the other partner in that relationship is going to want stricter boundaries, and I mean that's just part of life.
So is that what we have to look forward to, Tony?
I
If we ever
guess.
settle down?
I guess no, but that's the thing though, because I feel like earlier when we were talking about friendships in general, because I feel like we become friends with people for different reasons. Like they're in our life for, the levels of closeness I think really vary a lot. So the friends that I have now that are guys, like I don't see why, like if I were to get married one day, I don't see why like I couldn't do like a double date like with my husband and then like whoever they end up, like I see that all the time with like friendships, like people doing like double dates, triple dates, like that's totally like plausible. But like in terms of the closeness, I think that's what tends to kind of fluctuate because depending on what, because you could have friends that are based off of just like you go golfing together and that's like purely the only thing that you do, versus I don't have a lot of friends where like I'm opening up to them and like being vulnerable with them that's of the opposite sex or gender, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's different
When you get
level.
married, you make friends with other married couples. So like my wife, she had a book club, and she made really good friends with someone else in her book club, and they wanted you know uh me and my friend's husband to also hang out. So there's connections in that way also. When you get married afterwards, you make friends with other married couples, because married couples tend to, I guess, understand each other a little bit better, like scheduling how busy you can be, because you can say, oh, I gotta cancel this because my kids gotta do this or that, and you're like, oh yeah, absolutely, totally understanding, versus when you're single, you're kind of just only answerable to yourself. So there's that. So I would say don't be afraid to get married and worry about how your friendships might change.
See, but you know what? I do agree with you because I have seen it with all my married friends where, the two girls are friends and they're making their husbands become friends whether they like it or not. So I have seen that with a lot of the married people. Yeah. But I think that's one thing that I'm fearful of because I have seen it in past relationships where where you do get married and the other person wants you to cut ties with your friends. And that's what I'm scared of. Like, I don't want to lose friends just because I get married. You know what I mean?
I've definitely seen that where uh the spouse seemed to want your friend basically to cut ties with everybody, male or female. I've definitely seen that. And um I don't want to dictate like how someone else's marriage should be run, but at the same time, I think that's crossing into territory where it's like, really, like, even his guy friends, he can't still have guy friends. Like, that kind of doesn't make sense. And you can be
See,
understanding that, like, yeah, you want to spend a lot of time with your wife and your family, but it doesn't mean you should get to the point where you completely cut off ties, because, like, I mean, in the end, you're always going to need friendships with people. You're always going to run into a situation where you need something from somebody that's not your immediate spouse. You're going to need a friend. But if you burned all those bridges, what do you have left?
Yeah. No, I've seen that too, where some of my guy friends, their wife won't even let them hang out with other guys, not even just with other girls, as with other guys. Raya put something in the chat, which I thought was really funny. He says, my husband took my best guy friend from me. They're best friends now. And I've
That's
seen
the
that
ideal,
happen.
right?
Yeah. Hey, but that's okay, because then at least you could still hang out with that guy friend because they're friends with your husband, right? Yeah. Because and I think that's another thing when they try to limit who you could be friends with. I don't know. I don't think that's cool. I mean, I understand you're married. I get that, but I don't think, even if you're married, I don't think you should have a right to say who you can and cannot be friends with, especially if it's totally platonic. I think. Thoughts?
I somewhat disagree on that, but like I said, it depends on the marriage. Like in the end, I'm not going to dictate like how someone else's marriage should go. Like there's definitely opinions, but I'm not going to be the same person. You know, you in the end, between you and your spouse, you have to know your spouse. You need to communicate. It definitely helps to communicate boundaries. I know like when you're young couples, that might be kind of a difficult hump to get over, like how to communicate boundaries clearly without having to guess what the other person is you know expecting. So yeah, I mean it definitely makes it a lot more complicated, but yeah, everyone's different in the end.
I feel like also as like the if you are the friend that's being like cut off because of whatever XYZ reason, I feel like that also shows your respect to your friend by, like letting whatever it is, like that's between them. That's between them already as like as husband and wife. And that's kind of like showing your love by respecting that. I feel like you can't always like hold on to everybody forever. And if they're meant to come back around in your life at some point, like that's great. But if not, I feel like that's a good expression of love too. It's not like being possessive of them, but even being able to let them go. Like, yeah, that's okay because we had our time, and you can always just cherish those memories if it ends up having to be that way.
So you're saying don't be an instigator?
I mean, yeah, I mean it's like there are certain battles I think that you can fight for, and then there's just some that you just let it be. Like I think it is hard. I would say like to be on the other end of that. I'm sure there are people who are listening who have been on the other end of that, but it's like there's only so much that you can do like when you're dealing with that, because husband and wife, I feel that's a completely different story and different level than friendship. And I wouldn't want to put my friend in a position of having to like make like tough choices in terms of that. So just like, you know what, do what works for you. If an opportunity comes up that we can like revisit the friendship, then that's great. But if not, just like appreciated the time we had. That was awesome. Bye. you know, just being able to not just like cutting people off like so easily, but just I guess being accepting and understanding as relationships kind of like fluctuate and move through things. Just my take.
Nate, I'm just curious. Were you and Melanie friends before you guys became boyfriend, girlfriend, and all that stuff? Or did you guys just like meet each other and liked each other and went from there?
That's what it seemed like. Yeah.
Which one?
I mean, we had like common interests in music, and that's kind of like what started the friendship, but it moved pretty quickly after that. Yeah. And like I said, we were married like a year and a half after dating, something like that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So you guys, but how long were you guys friends before you actually started dating?
She's
Probably
looking
like
for
a
the
week or two.
moment.
No, I'm just curious to see like that, because like I said, I mean, because I know a lot of people who like met, liked each other, got married right away and all that stuff, which is fine. But then I've also
Right.
known people who were friends forever before they even started dating and all that stuff. So I'm just
Oh
curious.
yeah. Well, I'd known her for a while, but I would say like after we started to talk to each other, it was probably only a week or two.
That's it?
Yeah.
I think
Hmm.
she's looking for the moment that you started to see her more than a friend. I feel like that's what she's asking.
Yeah, that was like a week or two. Yeah. It
Really?
wasn't that long. No, not at all. I mean,
Mm.
to me, I'm kind of like that. If I like someone, then I'm not gonna try to play games or think like, oh, I should wait like 5 months until I actually do anything. No, I do what I want to do. That's how I've always treated my relationships. Like if I want to tell them I like them, I'm not bound to any kind of. There's no hard fast rule like saying you have to follow these exact timelines if you're interested in someone. It really is dependent on you and that other person.
So after the 2 weeks or whatever, when you decided you liked her, were you the one to tell her, or was she the one to tell you first
Oh, it was.
that you guys
That's a good question.
that
I
you
think it
guys
was.
liked each other?
I feel like I was the one who was initiating mostly everything. Yeah, I was initiating most of everything.
And did she see you just as a friend, or was she interested?
I think she was somewhat interested. She didn't really know like my situation or if I would be interested back. So, there's always that kind of hesitation. But, after we were talking late into the night, I think it was kind of obvious at that point.
Huh.
I want to read something that Jeff put in the live chat because this has been eating at my brain since earlier. He said, it's a dance. At some point, y'all just get in sync. But, like, at some point, don't you actually have to tell them, like, because I feel like when you start talking to someone, you know what your feelings are, but it's harder to tell what the other person feels. No? Or can you tell? Can you tell sometimes?
I
Sometimes you
can't.
can. Sometimes you
I
can. Sometimes you
can't.
I
can't.
can't either.
I can't. I never can tell. I'm so dense.
Unless a guy tells me they like me, I'm not gonna think they do.
Yeah, same. I'm so dense. They could be flirting and I'm just like, oh, they're so nice.
Yeah, me too. Why is Nate laughing at us?
Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you could tell both of you are hitting it off. That was me and my wife. We could tell. It didn't take long for us to tell that
But
we
how
were
do you
hitting it off.
know? Like when you say hitting it off, like it was just like fireworks, like the energy was just matched.
Were there butterflies in your stomach?
Oh yeah, that's called anxiety.
See, I think the hard part for me was like if I knew like some guys like me, but I didn't like them, so I didn't care about that. You know what I mean? But if I
True.
had liked someone, I don't know if they like me unless they tell me they like me. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm super dense. Just like no, I need the exact words. I need you to say it for me to believe it. Because otherwise, if you're just hinting or you're just saying like making like fuck cute or like jokes, I'm just like, well, they're just whatever. I downplay it until the end.
Yeah. And like I said, with like I said, I don't know, but after a while, when like some of my guy friends, when they eventually got married and all that stuff, and we would reminisce on our childhood, they're like, yeah, I liked you. And I'm like, why didn't you say anything? Because it's just, you know what I'm saying? Because like I said, I didn't know and they didn't say anything. So we're like, oh, well,
It
too
wasn't meant
bad.
to be. It wasn't meant to
Exactly.
be. Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, if you really really like someone, you're not gonna let like barriers kind of get in the way of you, actually saying it. But if you're, it's almost saying like if you're too shy to say and admit to somebody, then maybe you really don't like them that much.
Maybe it could just be an infatuation kind of thing, I guess.
It might be
I have
just my analytical mind because it's like the opportunity cost. If you don't, say to this person, are you going to regret it later, right? And you start weighing that in your head. But that's me. So,
But what do you do in the aftermath of that? Because earlier Arnie was like asking me about being the one to friend zone someone. Like, how do you, like, as an individual, deal with like being friend zoned? Like, you're the one that tried to shoot your shot, and then they told you like, no, I don't see you that way. Like, can you keep a friendship after that? Like, I know Nate earlier you said no, like you would dip.
No.
Wait,
Is
did
it-
that ever happen to you, Nate?
Yeah. So nothing comes to mind because it's probably something I've repressed and buried. But like for me, it's like, all right, I'm gonna be sad for a day, but I'm gonna move on. I'm not letting this like, ruin my life. I'm not gonna let somebody else ruin my life, basically.
Did you say friends though? No.
No.
See, and I think it's harder for girls because I think the girls they're more emotional, and
Attached.
so yeah, I think we get attached more easily than guys do, and so when somebody says, "Yeah, I kind of don't like," I think that one kind of.
I will say you kind of pretend to be friends just to be civil. That was the word we used earlier. But yeah, in the end, it's like I'm just gonna let this
After.
kind of fade and go away. Because it's like at the same time, it's like I don't want to carry this around with me. Like the next person I meet is not going to want me carrying this around. I need to cut it off and let it go.
That's true. That's a good point of view, Nate. But what if it's somebody that you were friends with for like a long time? Like, what if you guys were like long time friends and then all of a sudden it's just like admission
That's
of
the thing, like,
feelings?
I never had like really deep friendships with like females, so having to cut something off like that it's not that difficult because there really wasn't a deep friendship to begin with. So I can't really be the expert to answer that.
Okay.
See, but that happened to me though. When I was friends with a person for the longest time, and then yeah, things didn't work out, and I mean, like, it sucks because now we're not friends anymore. But it does happen, and so I think that's the hard part, especially like if you were really good friends. That kind of makes it difficult. I don't know.
I want to read what Jeff put in the chat because this is 100%. He's like, I'm not going to let someone else ruin my life. I'm already too good at ruining my own life. Yep. Yep.
That is so true.
Sums it up.
So, final thoughts. Can guys and girls just be friends?
I don't know. How do you follow that comment from Jeff?
I do not.
I agree. I concur. Yeah.
I don't think
Riley.
I don't think I'm good at ruining my life yet.
They can. It takes a very strong person to be able to do it. If they're like a very, very close friend. I don't know. At least around my age, everyone wants to date each other. So when you're older, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not as old as you guys, so
We're not old.
Thanks.
What are you talking about?
Thanks,
I'm
Riley.
only 29.
I'm not like halfway through my life already.
Yeah, he's just starting his life, okay? He just finished college, so he's just starting to live his life.
Halfway through my life. Thanks for that, Riley. Thanks for that reminder. I think it can be. I think they can be. It's just kind of like knowing what your personal boundaries are and like communicating them and just being self-aware, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that is important, especially when you're really good friends. I think as long as you know where the boundaries are, then it's fine. But in my experience, like I said, if one person wanted more than friendship and didn't happen, I noticed that those didn't last that long. You know what I mean? Because eventually I had lost touch. So a lot of the friends that I still remain friends with that are guys that I was always just friends with and always had, no intentions. So that's why I think guys and girls can still be friends. But that's just me.
I think, there's definitely boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, but, life isn't as black and white as we want it to be. And that's kind of what makes it interesting and fun. And why after you get married, you're like, I don't ever want to go back to that ever again. So,
Yeah. Well, I hope you all had enjoyed our conversations when it comes to friendships. And, for me, like I said, I think guys and girls can be friends, but for some people, maybe they cannot. But whether or not you can be friends with the opposite gender, just still have some kind of friends, right? We hope you all enjoyed the conversation we had today. Thank you to our guests who joined us. hopefully you'll tune in again next week on Chatline when we will discuss other conversations, hopefully that matter. Until then, adios.
What I ask, let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I bring my last.